Hi everyone, just another video to go through another piece of proposed legislation from the government in regards to the coronavirus stimulus package. So today I'm going to be talking about the JobKeeper payment that was suggested over the weekend, or announced over the weekend. So again, this is another announcement that's had absolutely no legislation put to Parliament yet. And basically all of the details have yet to be ironed out, but I thought I'd get something to you as an employer. This is something that you should consider for your employees, or if you're a sole trader for yourself. Essentially, as an introduction, this the JobKeeper payment is trying to get some of the strain of the resources from Centrelink. So as you can imagine, Centrelink has been absolutely inundated since this whole thing started, with people being stood down or let go, trying to get some payments through Centrelink, which is obviously fair enough. What this payment is doing is it's putting some of that administrative pressure back off Centrelink and onto the employers. So essentially the incentive is the job seeker payments are a little bit higher than what you would get from Centrelink. However, it's administered through your employer. So I'm going to talk today in this video about eligibility for your business, eligibility for your employees, and also a little bit about how this is going to be administered. So firstly, I'm going to talk about if you're eligible as an employer to receive these payments to forward onto your employees. The current eligibility criteria set forward from the government is a drop of under 30% of turnover relevant or to a comparable period in a prior year. So again, what this looks like, we don't know. The devil's in the detail. The simplest way to put it is if you've got your March 2020 BAS prepared and lodged, or you've got figures up until the 31st of March, if we were to compare that from the March BAS or figures for March 2019, and your income has dropped more than 30%, then that's pretty well all that we need to do to be eligible as an employer. Now, there's obviously cases where the financial effects of the coronavirus for a lot of industries haven't hit yet, but they will in the coming months. So basically how we would look at that is potentially we'd look at April, the month of April this year, 2020, and compare that to the month of April 2019. So basically, if you don't meet the simple criteria I mentioned first, it's up to the tax office's discretion. But from what I read initially, of course, these things are changing every day, which is doing my head in. But if it's as simple as we can just show April's got essentially no income compared to April 2019, that should be enough to be eligible as a business. So we'll talk about the eligibility criteria for your employees. So essentially, if they're part-time or full-time as at the 1st of March 2020, then they'll be an eligible employee for the payment, even if they have been stood down or let go during this process. So if they're rehired, then they are eligible. Casuals is a bit different. They need to have been a casual working regularly with you for the last 12 months. So if you've got a casual that's been working with you for under 12 months, unfortunately at this stage it appears as if they won't be eligible for the payment. You might have a casual that works multiple jobs. So hospitality industry, this is obviously not uncommon. An employee can only claim the JobKeeper payment through one employer. So I suppose you would initially think, who am I eligible to be with? So if they've been with one cafe for 6 months and one cafe for 18 months, they would obviously go on the books of the cafe they've been with for 18 months, as they've met that 12-month criteria. So you'd have to go on a case-by-case basis with your employees, be in communication with them, because you as an employer don't necessarily need to be registered for this. You can obviously register now with the tax office, which I'll get into a bit later. But if you're an employer and don't wish to rehire or keep your employees on the books, which is a business decision that you'll have to make, the employee still has the Centrelink avenue to go down. So they're not going to go without, they just have to go through the Centrelink route rather than the JobKeeper route. So keep that in mind as well as you're going through your staff and making that decision for your business. So how much does each employee get? It's $1,500. So that's the payment from the government to you as the employer to forward on to your employees. So if an employee that's eligible, that's on your books, was earning less than $1,500 per fortnight, well, they've magically got a pay increase. They will get the minimum $1,500 per fortnight payment. If you have an employee who has been maintained on the books through this whole process but earns more than $1,500 a fortnight, then you can still obviously apply for the JobKeeper payment, and it will act as a subsidy. So if you have an employee who's paid $2,000 a fortnight, obviously you would have to pay the $500 a fortnight to top up the wage of that employee. If you have employees that you've stood down or are rehiring, that's up to you as the employer, but you would have to be paying them the minimum of the $1,500 a fortnight. These payments aren't subject to superannuation. However, the ATO have said if you want to pay superannuation on top of this payment, you can. Honestly, that would mean you as an employer are out of pocket. So if you don't have to, I wouldn't, to be quite honest. It's administered monthly in arrears by the tax office. Now, that essentially means that you need to wear a month's worth of wages before you get reimbursed by the tax office. So the way that a lot of businesses are operating at the moment, they simply can't afford to carry a month's worth of wages for their entire payroll just to be reimbursed a month later. So all of this is a cash flow and timing issue. I don't know how else the ATO or the government can administer it. Only they need to get some other payments to their employers so they can wear this payroll for the month, because for many people they fly by the seat of their pants by way of cash flow anyway, and particularly at the moment they've had no cash flow for several weeks now. How are they supposed to carry a month's worth of payroll before getting reimbursed? So again, it's a business decision that you have to make, and if your employees don't like it, well, they still have Centrelink. They still have Centrelink to go to get those benefits. So have a think about that, and when you're making your choice, can I carry a month's worth of payroll only to be reimbursed later? So to get the JobKeeper payment, you need to register with the ATO, which I will send a link to my clients. I think I might have done it already, but I'll send a link to my clients again, and just to simply register your interest. So once you're registered, the ATO administers it, so they'll be the ones who need information in regards to the 30% drop in income, as well as your employees' data. So they'll get that through the single touch payroll data that you're doing through your payroll. So it is important to administer this through the books, through your single touch payroll avenues, which if you do need assistance, please let me know. Also, self-employed people are eligible for this payment. So They are saying strictly sole traders. So for those of you who get distributions through a trust, I have heard that the answer is no, and I'll go into that a little bit later on. Partnerships, I'm not sure. As far as I'm concerned, partnerships are just two sole traders. There's no corporate entity there, so I don't see why there's any issue with that. However, that's all to come out in the wash once these things are actually legislated, and the detail comes out and they move the goalposts on me again. So I do know from good authority that they are not going to offer this payment to people who earn their income through trust distributions. The simple reason being is that apparently the ATO don't like trusts, so they keep them legal and running, but their view on them is pretty it's pretty unfair if you ask me. But apparently their stance is that trusts or people who get trust distributions, I should say, get enough tax benefit through administering their business through a trust, which to me is, it's completely legal. They allow it, and that justification's complete bullcrap. But they're the ones in charge. So for those sole traders, definitely keep register your interest. For people on the books through companies, if you get a wage, then yes, do it. People receiving trust distributions, your employees, yes, but for yourself, no. People receiving remuneration through a company dividend, I would imagine that you're in the same boat as the trust distribution people. And for partnerships, there's no word. I can't advise on that at this point in time. So I'll keep my ear to the ground and keep my clients informed, as I try to always do. So in terms of where we go from here, look, the goalposts are moving every day, as I said. I know that the Treasury fact sheets, which almost are the source of truth for a lot of people, even they are getting amended on a daily basis, or when something new arises and they change their mind or have a new opinion on something. So we'll just have to keep our ear to the ground. I'm doing my best, so hopefully you guys find some value in this video, and as usual, let's just keep plugging away. Let's get through this and get through the other side. Thanks everyone.